Now, welcome along to the first ever Calling It With Endicall live stream. I am looking back at Rangers' win in the Glasgow Derby on Saturday. So I tried to do a live stream after the game, but I wasn't in my own house, I wasn't in my own studio, didn't have a good mic. The setup was shit, I was in a bad mood. So I thought I'd come back really refreshed, look back at the game first, and actually see what was it as bad as we actually thought initially. The answer is yes, it was dreadful. The players didn't look good enough, they didn't look fit enough. Rangers passed the ball around them with ease, they dominated the game. Celtic had a lot of possession in the game, but they did nothing with it as usual. It was sort of the same old story from the year ahead and what we've witnessed already with Celtic, but they've been getting by, and the problem is you don't get by in the Glasgow Derby. You have to be at the top of your game, and Celtic just weren't at the top of their game at all. So I'm going to look at 5 things that we learned from the game. If you want to get involved in the conversation, do leave a comment below. I will try to get back to everyone as much as I can, and if you haven't subscribed to the channel, do subscribe to the channel as well. So let's get into this. We'll start off with number 1, the leaks. So Neil Lennon spoke about this after the game. There were leaks from the Celtic camp ahead of the game about the team sheet. Now, firstly, I do want to talk about Neil Lennon and his comments after the game. He said that we're going to find the mole that leaked the team. He said it was disgusting. He said that people were trying to do them in from the inside. And I do think Neil Lennon kind of capitalised on this as much as he could, because it was sort of a distraction from the actual problems on the pitch and the issues that they have been facing this year. However, when a team sheet is leaked the night before, that is a big issue. So basically, if anybody doesn't know what happened, the team sheet was leaked on social media the night before the game. We all knew that Christie was out, we all knew that Nir Bitton was out, we all knew El Hamid was out, and we thought that Edouard might be out injured as well. So essentially what happened was that the team sheet was leaked, and we knew that Chris Julian was logged out as well. Sorry, my stream went a bit funky there. I was just making sure I was still live. So essentially what happened was we knew that Chris Julian was out injured now, and that Stephen Welsh would come in. 20-year-old Stephen Welsh coming into a Glasgow Derby. It's not an easy thing to do. So listen, that was a big distraction going into the game. Might have caused a little bit of issues in the camp, and it's not something that you want. We also knew that Ayeti wouldn't be starting, and Patrick Klimala would be starting alongside El Yunusi up front, so Griffiths was on the bench. Is this as big an issue as Neil Lennon was trying to make out? I don't think it is, because if you've got your team sheet there, if you've got your team in order, then it shouldn't really matter if the opposition know who you're starting and who they're not. They probably already had a fair idea who Celtic were going to start anyway, so I don't think that was a major issue. Neil Lennon is using this a little bit of a distraction from losing the first Glasgow Derby of the year and Rangers going 4 points ahead of them in the table. So number 2, fitness issues. This comes from the issues on the pitch and from also the leaks. It all ties together. The fitness issues are a key issue, because Neil Lennon said after the game that the Ayeti wasn't starting because he wasn't fit enough, that Edouard wasn't starting because he wasn't fit enough. Same with Griffiths. So with Griffiths and Edouard, I can understand. Edouard had COVID-19 2 weeks ago. He was self-isolating, he wasn't training, and like I said in the video prior to this, it's a respiratory disease. So it's not a situation where you get COVID, you're over COVID, and then you're back on the pitch straight away. You will have to build up your fitness and your lung capacity again. So I can understand why he was not fit enough for this game. Griffiths, I can also understand. He's only back from a long-term injury, and it will take him a couple of weeks of match fitness to get back up to speed where you can play in a Glasgow Derby as well. So what about Ayeti? This is my problem, because Ayeti has been playing this year. He's been at the club for several months now. Why is he not fit enough to play in this game? It was the same issue with Patrick Klimala when he first joined the club. He didn't play for like 4 months because he wasn't fit enough. I don't know if Neil Lennon's standards are too high when it comes to fitness, or if these players aren't putting it in the pitch, or the strength and condition isn't good enough at Celtic at the minute. But it has been a real issue. If you don't have all your best players fit, why don't you have them fit? Why are they not playing these games? And why aren't they good enough to start in these games? So Ayeti seems to me, from face value, he was in good form going into this game. He should have been starting in this game. Why wasn't he fit enough? That is my key question going into this. I'm not really sure. I'd like to know. Maybe he has a knock. Maybe he picked up something in training. We'll find out in a couple of weeks. But from me, from face value, from what we're seeing, I don't understand why Ayeti wasn't fit for this game. So number 3, midfield problems is something that we've had all across this year so far, and it's starting to spring up a little bit more now when Celtic are playing 3-5-2. So the 3-5-2 only works if you've got 2 centre defensive midfielders that are going to be doing the work that the wing backs would not prior be doing. So if you're playing forward to back, then that's fine. The wing backs or the full backs aren't getting forward as much. They're covering as much ground as possible. You're covering that area. When you're playing wing backs, you need your centre midfielders to be covering the areas that they wouldn't be able to cover because they're too far up the pitch. When you have players like Scott Brown doing that, then he doesn't have the legs to do it, and he isn't strong enough to do it anymore. He doesn't have the capacity to do it anymore, but he seems to be undroppable under Neil Lennon, and I can't understand that because he hasn't been playing well. So why is he starting in the team? That would be my question. And what I would like to see is Brown to drop out of the team, Olivier Ntcham, because I don't think Ntcham does enough defensive work when he's playing in the number 10 role. Olivier Ntcham dropping back to that defensive midfield role with Cal McGregor, get Scott Brown off the pitch and get David Turnbull onto the pitch if Ryan Christie's not starting, and then you can start to get a little bit more dynamism in that midfield, get more legs in the midfield, get more pace in the midfield, and you can cover more ground. I don't think Scott Brown does it anymore. Scott Brown is old. He's been a great servant of the club, but it's time to start building and start thinking for the future and start thinking about potentially replacing Scott Brown, because he's not going to be here much longer. So why not start to blood young talent in there? Why not start to see what other options we have there? So that brings us on to number 4. Improved Rangers. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this because nobody wants to talk about why Rangers are improving, and they are improving. If you don't think Rangers are improving, then you haven't been watching enough football, or you're a little bit deluded. They are improving. They are getting better, and I think the key evidence of that is that for 10 years Rangers didn't beat Celtic at Celtic Park. They've now beaten them twice at Celtic Park in the space of 2 years. The players look sharper, they look fitter, they looked like they knew what they were doing more on the pitch, and they just looked up for the game a bit more. And I don't know if that's an issue with the Celtic players getting a little bit lax. They've won 9 titles in a row now, and they just don't have that drive anymore. You do see that a lot of the times with these really successful teams, and you see Rangers coming up and doing a little bit better. They seem to have a bit more fight in them when it comes to these Glasgow derbies. So I don't really understand why that is, but Celtic are getting better, or Rangers are getting better rather, and it is something to worry about because Celtic seem to be getting worse. They don't seem to be improving on the pitch. They seem, even though the squad is better now than I think it was in the last 2-3 years, I genuinely think that Celtic's performances are going down, and that brings me to number 5, Celtic's tactics. And I know Lisbon67 is watching, and he's saying that Lennon has to go. He wants to see Lennon gone because he's not good enough to be the Celtic manager, and he never will be again. And I would start to come around to that sort of thinking as well, because when Brendan Rodgers came in, I know the way that he left isn't ideal and whatever. He has a clear idea of what way he wants to play on the pitch. He was clearly able to coach the players to do so, and Celtic were unstoppable under Brendan Rodgers. That's why they went invincible. That's why they won the treble under him, and that is why they seem to be a little bit worse now, because Brendan Rodgers coached the players properly, and I don't think Neil Lennon has the capacity to do that. I don't think he's a coach to the standard of Brendan Rodgers. And that's why we're seeing a drop-off. And the tactical naivety or the tactical ineptitude that we're seeing, well, we definitely seen it in the game against Rangers, is that when Celtic don't break down a team first wave, they don't have any other options. They don't have any different ways of going about it. They tried to launch the ball up to Patrick Kamala and El Yunusi a couple of times in this game, and that's just never going to work against a team that are of the quality that Rangers are at the minute. And they don't seem to have the capacity to work it through the channels, to work it through a different system, to pass the ball with the same capacity as they did a couple of years ago. And I do think that comes down to the coaching. It comes down to the lack of tactical nous from Neil Lennon. And the problem with, if Neil Lennon left, and this is where the key issue comes, is where do Celtic go? And I know we sort of thought that under Ronnie Deila as well. Where do Celtic go? But Brendan Rodgers was available then, and there's no quality coaches like Brendan Rodgers that Celtic are going to attract. If there are anybody that you think would be better at taking over Celtic, then do let me know. Lisbon67, I know you're watching as well. Jared has the love of his players. Lennon doesn't have that with the players. Another Brendan Rodgers. Let's go and get Poch. I think Poch is a bit over optimistic. I know Brendan Rodgers was a good get for Celtic, but I do think Poch is a little bit over ambitious for Celtic at the minute. I don't think he would come up to Scottish football. I think he's waiting out essentially for Solskjaer to get sacked and take the United job, but he would be a great option. Obviously, I do think there must be some coaches out there that we don't actually know, but I don't think Celtic would be able to attract the likes of Pochettino to the club, to be honest. Other than that, I'm just really disheartened after that performance. Rangers 4 points ahead of Celtic now. I know Celtic do have a game in hand, but it's a real issue because that, as I said, that's now 2 Glasgow derbies that Celtic have lost, and Steven Gerrard is starting to gain ground. He's starting to gain momentum, and momentum is something I spoke about a lot over the course of this. It is a culmination of these bad performances that we have seen over the course of the year. So I'm talking about the likes of the Ferencváros loss in Europe, where Celtic just weren't good enough to beat a really bad team. I'm talking about even wins, the ones against Kilmarnock, and just when you're stumbling over the line and you're sort of making excuses, and I'm as bad as anybody else for making excuses at the start of the season that Celtic weren't actually fit enough at this point in time. But it's a culmination. So that is the issue. When you're beating these easy sides, these worse sides than you, and you're stumbling over the line and it doesn't look fluid and it's not getting, you're just about getting over the line, this is where the issues rise, because you're getting the points against those teams, but where the issues come from is then when you come up against the likes of Rangers, when you come up against the likes of Ferencváros, and God forbid we play like that against AC Milan in Europe, because they will tear us to shreds, because that's the issues. When you come up against the better opposition, they're better tactically than you, and that's a major issue under Neil Lennon. So I do genuinely think that maybe the time is up on Neil Lennon. He's been a great servant to the club. Twice he's taken them over in dark times for the club, and he's won leagues. And I do appreciate what he has done for the club, but I genuinely don't think that Celtic are going to keep improving under Neil Lennon. So that are the 5 things that I learned from the Old Firm, or the Glasgow Derby, from the weekend. What did you think of the game? So the leaks, what did you think of the leaks? Is that just a distraction Neil Lennon's using? The fitness, what's going on with Celtic's fitness? Why aren't they getting fitter as the season goes on? We're 2.5 months into the season now, and they don't seem to be fitter than they were a couple of months ago. Midfield, where do you think Celtic improve in midfield? They do have the depth there. That is, if Celtic have depth anywhere, that's where they have it. And Rangers, do you think they're actually going to be contenders this year? Do you think they're going to get over the line ahead of Celtic? Is the 10 in a row in jeopardy? Let me know in the comments below. If you watch this and you liked it and you want more live streams coming up over the course of the season, do subscribe to the channel, because that does help as well. I'm Endacall. This has been Calling It. Thanks for watching this first ever live stream of Calling It with Endacall. We'll chat to you later.